Hello and good morning. Sam Culper here with Forward Observer. We're continuing on in this SHTF intelligence series, and I'm talking about my preparedness strategy, how I look at these upcoming problems and challenges, and how we can begin security and preparedness planning. Now, before we get started with today's fifth and final step, I have to tell you that on Thursday, 19 September, I will be doing an SHTF intelligence webinar. It's going to be live and instructional. And it's a lot of stuff that we haven't yet covered in this series, and I'll post some details in the description below. If you're looking for a launching off point for SHTF intelligence after the series, then this is where you need to be, and I will see you there. Well, we finally arrived. Here are the 4 previous steps, which I recommend that you complete if you haven't already. Up to this point, we've built a framework for collection. By now, we should know where we should be looking and what we should be collecting. Today we're covering step 5, which is scan, monitor, and collect. We've done a bunch of prerequisite work up till now, and now we're engaging in intelligence gathering to continue informing our understanding of the operating environment. A common question following the area study is, okay, what's next? What do I actually collect? Well, throughout this process, you've been identifying, hopefully, a lot of intelligence gaps, the things that you don't know, but that you should know. So you should be writing those down. And once we know what we actually need to collect, then we can begin collecting. So we identify our intelligence gaps, we write them down, and now we know exactly what to collect. Now, I don't want to be in a situation where I tell my community security team or my preparedness group, hey, go out and collect whatever you think is worth collecting. Whatever you think is important, go out there and report it back to me. What we want to do instead is have our teammates or have our peers go out and collect these specified collection requirements, because those are the pieces of information we need in order to drive our decision making. In other words, we're running this engine and we're trying to fill it up with high octane fuel. I don't want a bunch of information that's useless clogging up the engine. Now, I would encourage you to have some standing requirements. Okay, these are enduring requirements. These are things that we're always going to have to answer. We can probably look at 3 to 5 requirements that we can pass around. Maybe we can print them out on a 3x5 index card and laminate them and hand it out to some trusted members of our group. One of those things might be, okay, identify all violent activity in the area of operations. If you hear, see, or experience some kind of violence in the neighborhood, that is spot reportable information. You must get that to the ACE, our intelligence section. You have to get that to us immediately. Another would be identify all criminal activity in the area of operations. So on, think about the things that you would want to know immediately. And then let's push that out to our teammates and say, hey, if you see a new gang tag, if you see an X, Y, or Z, radio it back up, call, text, whatever, run it back up to the person who needs to know, like the ACE chief or whoever is in charge of your intelligence effort. All this is called spot reportable information. If you see a suspicious person in your neighborhood, don't wait, send it up. That means that the members of your community security team or preparedness group need a way to contact you. Grid up, that's super easy. Grid down, that's a little more difficult. And I will do a video on information reporting, so be sure to subscribe to this channel if you have not already. This is super important information I will be covering later. Now, up till now, we've done our homework on what can break in our area. Hopefully, we've gotten at least a 50, 80% plus 80% solution to all these things that can go wrong locally as a result of second and third order effects of much larger events or non-linear events. During this monitor phase now, what we're doing is we're looking for potential changes in our operating environment. We know the things that can go wrong. Now it's our duty as the intel folks or as the intel guy to monitor and get as early warning as possible of those things breaking. Now, some other changes in the operating environment might be less critical. So there's a new apartment complex that's going up a mile away. Okay, that's important. That changes our intelligence preparation of our community here. There's a new police substation that's being built in the area. Or some company is clear-cutting trees and they're getting ready to put in a shopping mall down the road. Hey, and actually, here's a true story. Not far from the ranch, they're putting in a 100-home subdivision. I was driving by there the other day, and well, all of a sudden, that's a huge change in the area that needs some due diligence. Who's going to live there? Who are these people? What's their socioeconomic status? Or is this going to be Section 8 housing, or is this going to be McMansions? What are their politics and ideology of the people who live there? so on and so forth. Can these new residents start their own neighborhood watch and then interface with our own area security efforts? Are they going to be cooperative? Might they be adversarial? So there's all sorts of questions here that need to be answered. And the bottom line here really is that the human terrain matters. These changes in our operating environment matter, and we have to monitor these changes. Otherwise, we're going to get blindsided by information that we didn't know existed. When these developments do happen, we need to update our area study. We need to say, oh, here's a new significant characteristic of the human terrain, or hey, this piece of critical infrastructure is being built. Okay, well, we need to add that to the area study. And then we can look at these things and identify their effects. Okay, is this going to affect us during an SHTF scenario? Is this apartment complex where 700 people or 1,000 people or more people are living now? How is that going to affect us? And then once we know how that's going to affect us, then we can begin prioritizing our resources or changing our plans to adapt to those developments in our operating environment. This is super important. This is one thing that I think a lot of people completely miss, is monitoring for changes in the operating environment. Okay, this is like shooting a rifle long range. Okay, if you haven't measured the wind speed or the distance to the target or the elevation that you're shooting over, i.e. your operating environment, if you're not measuring those things and monitoring and tracking those things, then your round is going to land probably far away from where you thought it was going to. So this is something that really deserves your due diligence. And also, I should say, this is a continuous process. At the Pentagon and some other places, there are intelligence analysts right now updating the intelligence products for Somalia or Pakistan or Estonia or wherever, and they're being updated around the clock. These intelligence packages, called Intelligence Preparation of the Battlefield, or IPB, these IPB products are being updated around the clock. Why? Because if there's a contingency operation, or if war were to break out and we get involved, then we require the most up-to-date intelligence to make decisions, to make good decisions, I should say. As long as the operating environment is changing, then this must be a continuous process. Now, we don't necessarily have to take it to that extreme level. I'm not asking you to create up-to-the-second updates, but we have a monthly meeting, and we start out every monthly meeting with an intel brief. So I give my 2 cents. We go around the room. We say, hey, what's going on in the area? What have you seen? What should you be reporting up to the group so that we can have better situational awareness all around? What I would recommend is that you get buy-in from your teammates and build a culture of information sharing within your group, because then we can better monitor what's going on in the AO, or the area of operations, and then we can create much better access to information and awareness. Now, on that point, General Stanley McChrystal, in his book, Team of Teams, writes about reforming the intelligence process at JSOC, which is Joint Special Operations Command, when he was in Iraq. Now, JSOC is the country's most elite special operations units, the Tier 1 guys. And when McChrystal first got to Iraq, the mission that they were trained for, the mission that they were prepared for, was completely different than what was actually going on the ground. So he reorganized JSOC from the ground up. And he talked about how this was like reassembling an airplane mid-flight. Guys, I'm telling you, the last thing you want to do is be in an SHTF situation and realize, hey, reality is way different than what we expected, and all of a sudden we got to change things. Now we got to bug out, or we should have bugged in, or we should have done X, Y, or Z differently, because we didn't have an area study and we didn't have realistic expectations of the future. So I'm not trying to be condescending, or I'm not trying to beat a dead horse, but you just got to understand all these plans about military operations and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. If it's not based on ground intelligence, then you may have faulty assumptions. And if you have faulty assumptions, then your end result is going to be completely different than what you expected. There are a lot of folks in the preparedness community who are preparing for the wrong things, or they're misallocating their preparedness budgets because they haven't done an area study and they don't know what's actually going to break in their own area of operations. And if you don't know what's going to break in your AO, then you can't adequately prepare for it. So the last thing that you want to do is to take off during SHTF, get in a few days or get a few weeks in, and then you realize that you have glaring gaps in your preparedness because you didn't plan for the second and third order effects of some threat, event, or vulnerability that you didn't even know existed. So I digress. We will move on. In this book, General McChrystal talks about how complex these intelligence operations were. And I know people have political reasons for being very anti-McChrystal. I certainly get that. Just put the ego and put your personal feelings about the man aside and seriously go read the book, because it's a fantastic book. So McChrystal, one thing that he wanted his analysts to adopt is this concept of shared consciousness, which is a form of extreme information sharing so that all the analysts would be on the same page. It's kind of difficult to explain in a short amount of time, but in high op-tempo environments, in high operational tempo environments, where operations are developing very, very quickly, there's an information overload. So key pieces of information can fall through the cracks. Well, if we have this culture of shared consciousness and we are ensuring that we are passing up these prioritized intelligence information reports, then we can ensure that the right information gets turned into the right intelligence so that we can drive operations very quickly. One of my favorite quotes of all time comes from Jack Welch. He's the former CEO of General Electric. He says, "If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, then the end is near." And he's talking about running a multi-billion-dollar company and having to do consumer research and development and develop these products today that are going to be put into use 10 years from now. And basically saying, look, if consumer demands in the marketplace is changing faster than your corporation can keep up with, then you're going to go out of business. Well, for us, it's kind of the same thing. If bad guys are moving faster than we can keep up with, or if conditions are changing faster than we can keep up with, or faster than can be anticipated in the future, then you are going to lose. The end is near. And this is such a great quote for SHTF intelligence because he's absolutely right. This is why we need to foster a culture of intelligence production in our groups, because without information sharing, without real-time intelligence being produced, the end is near. You're going to get wrecked. So we need to collect and share information. I hope that point gets across. Okay, great. So how do we do that? Well, you should have at your disposal 4 intelligence disciplines. And there are several more than these 4, but these are the 4 that I absolutely recommend. You must develop and implement collection in these 4 disciplines. This means that you have to go out and develop these capabilities. So we're going to go over these very briefly because I'm going to jump in waist deep during this SHTF Intelligence webinar coming up on September 19th. It's free. You need to be there. Open source intelligence, or OSINT, is the first discipline. If you don't already, start buying your local newspaper or your county or regional paper. Our local newspaper comes out once a week, and it is a goldmine of information. Seriously, it is one of my most important local intelligence sources. And the great thing about having a local paper is that you can provide these reporters with tips to investigate, like that subdivision that's going in near us. And so we can stick a local reporter on that topic, because it's newsworthy. We also need to monitor social media, so go create a Twitter account and a Facebook account. Not to go out and share your life story on these platforms, but to monitor information. You can follow your local news outlets, you can follow your local knucklehead political extremist groups, follow your local law enforcement, and so on. And this is super simple. All you're doing is creating a stream of information, and you're just monitoring that stream of information for information of intelligence value. And the great thing is, just about anyone can do this. Fire up Twitter on your phone and say, oh, this is interesting. Boom, email it to yourself. There are lots of other examples of open source intelligence, but these are 2 steps that you can take today. There is signals intelligence, or SIGINT. Older folks might call this comment or communications intelligence. There are people who use radios to communicate. Their conversations are being transmitted through radio waves, predominantly in the clear. They're transmitting in the clear. This means that we can listen in or we can intercept those communications. We just have to have our ears on. At a minimum, almost everyone needs a police scanner. If your local law enforcement uses encrypted communications, then you are out of luck. Sorry. Make a friend on the force. Try to get some information. For everyone else, you should be interested in what police are doing in your area. One of the best ways to find out immediately, in real time, is through a police scanner. Now, I know lots of areas, they might do initial dispatch or initial communications in the clear, and then they'll move to encrypted channels, or they'll move to their TAC channels and all that stuff. But if you can at least get a heads up that something is going down, then that might be extremely valuable early warning for you and your family. So there's a lot more SIGINT stuff that we can cover, and I'll have to do that in future videos. As a matter of fact, go join the pipeline at forwardobserver.com/subscribe. and I'm doing a whole series on rudimentary signals intelligence. I'll talk about that later though. Now there's human intelligence, or HUMINT. So get some friends in law enforcement, meet some friends in local politics, meet these people at church, or go do some ride-alongs with police on Saturday nights. Go start a neighborhood watch program, get to know your neighbors. Don't think about HUMINT as spying or espionage, because you're going to get a lot further by making friends who know things. So go out and find those people who know the things that you want to know, figure out where you can meet them, or ask for an introduction from a mutual friend. Facebook's a really great way to do this. Look somebody up. It'll say, hey, you got friends in common. Or go on LinkedIn and say, hey, this person knows this person who knows this person. And, work your way into getting an introduction if that's something that you feel like you need to do. And then once you make contact, position yourself for repeated contact. Invite them to go play golf with you, or show up with a check at their next fundraiser, like at a fire department or police station or whatever. Or see them for 4 or 5 weeks in a row at church and say hello and just start up some chit chat. Then invite them to lunch one day, or get your kid to go be friends with their kid. So what you should be doing here is building routine contact. You should be building rapport. You should be building trust. And then over time, build a relationship that leads to information sharing. It's not the amount of time that you spend with that person. It is the quality of time. So go out and do something with these people. Go find something to bond over. A family camping trip, a football game, whatever. And lastly, there's imagery intelligence, or IMINT. We can use Google Earth to pull down imagery of our AO. That's going to allow us to see things that we can't observe from the ground. I highly recommend Google Earth. It's an incredibly useful tool. Another option, which can get costly, are drones. If you want real-time, full-motion video, then a drone is a really great option. If you're in the drone business, make contact with me, because there are several applications for drones that I would like to explore, and I think that they have phenomenal utility for an SHTF intelligence gathering perspective, and I want to develop some of those platforms for my own use. And then if they work well, we can export. We can share the plans or do whatever, show people how to build the stuff themselves. Now, we had a saying in the Army, which was every soldier is a sensor. And that means that every soldier has an obligation to remain situationally aware and then report pertinent information. And in our case today, every community member is a sensor. It's my job as an intel dude to organize the flow of information from all these sensors, all these people in my group. We can collect all that information, and then we can make sense of what's going on before an SHTF event, and especially during an SHTF event. If you aren't building local information sharing networks, then you're planning to go through this event deaf and blind. Intelligence does not produce itself. It must be produced by you. Now, last month I started a regional preparedness network, and this is not a prepper group. It's a network of groups and individuals. And why did I start this? Because I'm interested in what's going on across the county and across the greater area. And I know that other people are interested in that as well. And so all of us working together will produce far greater results than me working by myself. This is the definition of force multiplication, and the intelligence we produce will be much, much better as a result. There's so much emphasis in this community on buying stuff. Like, oh, you just got to go buy this pack, and you got to buy this compass and this fire starter, and you got to go out and buy this freeze-dried food. And if you just spend all your money on this stuff, you're going to be great. If I just have 2 more months of food, then I can survive. Hey, if I just buy this fire starter, then I can survive. If I just buy this backpack, or if I just buy this rifle, or if I just buy this solar panel, then I can survive. Look, you can make do without a lot of that stuff. But what you can't make do without is situational awareness. You must have information coming in so that you can be better informed and make better decisions. Otherwise, all your stuff is going to belong to someone else. No amount of beans, bullets, and band-aids will allow you to maintain situational awareness. No amount of beans, bullets, and band-aids will allow you to anticipate events in the future. So this is really the bottom line. If you want these special abilities, if you want to be in a situation over and above that of your peers who do not have information coming in during this period of time, then you must develop intelligence. So get out there and scan, monitor, and collect. Hey, if you like these videos, understand 2 things. First, I'm in the business of helping people because I genuinely enjoy teaching this stuff. If you learned anything from my videos, do me a favor. First, like this video and subscribe to my channel. That helps me reach more people, and the more people I can reach, the better off we all are because of what's going to happen in the future. Second, I run a website called forwardobserver.com where I write intelligence reports about what's going on, and I also offer online training. I'll put a link for you in the description. This is how I make a living. This is my full-time job, and it has been for over 5 years. If you think I'm good at this job, and you know that you need these skills, then let's help each other out here. Subscribe to the training, and you can get access to a growing library of videos on intelligence gathering, security, and conflict. Lastly, I signed up for a Patreon account. If you want to support Forward Observer TV and ensure that I make future videos, then pitch me a few bucks a month. I'll be answering your questions, and you can help me decide which topics and videos I'll work on next. Well, that does it for this video, and actually that does it for this series. I appreciate all the love and support. I will be on Patreon to talk about some future videos that I can make. So until then, I hope you put all this information to good use, and until next time, stay out front.